Everyone, Kathy the Vegan Prepper here, and today I'm going to be sharing a little bit of the life update that I've been promising, some of the kind of crazy things that have been going on in my life, and what are my preps that got me through the best, like the things that I was most grateful that I had on hand, because I've said many times, prepping is not only going to save your life, it can possibly save your day. Like, I can't tell you how often the preps end up just saving my day in just like a normal day. Like normal stuff that comes up. Like we haven't had to use anything for any kind of emergency that like preppers would get excited about, but just like daily emergencies. It's been really helpful. So I'll share a little bit about that. And then also I will share some tips on kind of how to get stuff done even when you're not feeling your best. And then hopefully help you guys out that way. And so if you're interested, go ahead and keep watching. We'll get right into it. Vegan prepper, vegan prepper. First of all, I did end up having an emergency surgery, and so this was like about 4 weeks ago now, I think. I'm trying to think of my timeline. Like everything has been going so fast, I can't even really remember, but it's been about 4 weeks, I believe, since I've had my surgery. And so it was an emergency surgery to remove my gallbladder. And so that was kind of awesome. It was an unexpected thing. There's a whole saga attached to it. I'm trying to decide if I should share the saga or not. Basically, the very short version of it is several years ago, I got an ultrasound, and they found gallstones, but actually I was getting my liver checked out, but they also checked the gallbladder at the same time. And so that was the primary thing that came back, was that my gallbladder was full of gallstones. Yo-yo dieting can be a major risk factor for that, which I have, like many people my size, I have lost the same 10 to 20 pounds over and over and over and over again. And so that is definitely something that I have going on. There's other risk factors, which I have basically every one of those as well. And so it finally became an issue. But what happened was I was beginning to lose weight again. Very successfully, like very successfully. I lost a lot of weight really fast, which I have found out now is another trigger for gallstone issues. And so basically, about a week and a half in, I began having horrible pains up in my abdomen. I assumed were gas. And so then though it kept getting worse and worse, and I did some research, realized it's probably gallbladder pain. I ended up having an attack that was so bad I went to the ER one Saturday, but they said basically there's no emergent reason, is what they said, to remove the gallbladder. And so they went ahead and sent me home and said basically follow up with a doctor or whatever. And I was kind of like, I am leaving next weekend for a road trip to move my son across the country to Washington, D.C., because he's going to Washington, D.C. to work. And so I don't really even have time to do this right now. There weren't even appointments available that week. And so basically I decided to try to wait it out and hopefully it would get better. And then, you know, funny, we were planning on leaving Sunday. Friday, I ended up with an attack so bad. I hadn't had anything to eat or drink that morning. Adam was like freaking out a little bit watching me have this attack. If you've never had a gallstone attack, you might not know what I'm talking about, but it was very, very bad. And I was like crying and writhing on the bed. And I was like, I'm not faking it. I'm not faking it. And he's like, I know you're not faking it. So I get really like weird when I have an issue and somebody sees me have an issue. I really don't like that. I'm not one to be dramatic or show off. In fact, I'm definitely one that like clenches my jaw and just kind of gets through stuff. Like, I didn't really even make a sound when I gave birth to Sage. I didn't make a sound pretty much the whole time that I was in labor until it was time to push. And then at that point, I could no longer hold it in. So this is where like, I am like I will not let it out. And so this was bad. And so we went to the emergency room that day. Finally, lo and behold, thank God, they found an emergent reason to take my gallbladder out. So we were supposed to leave for our trip on Sunday, but I ended up having surgery on Saturday. And so the doctor was fully aware of the fact that I was going on a road trip. And so he did clear me for that. The surgery went perfectly fine. You know, it was textbook, everything was fine. And then sorry, my brain is like trying to keep up with some of the details. And so I did have one more night in the hospital. I went home on Sunday, and then we did leave Monday morning to go on the road trip. We drove across the entire country. So we drove in a rental vehicle across the country, moved my son into Washington, D.C. I got to recover from surgery on the road, which honestly is probably the best way that I could have done it. I can't imagine that if I were home, I would have recovered very well or very quickly, because I probably would have kept trying to do too much, because, you know, my home is, you know, as a stay-at-home mom, as somebody who, you know, basically lives at home and takes care of the home and takes care of everything. I also have a business that I run. I do this now too. I consider this like my second business. And all of that stuff is going on at home. For me, this is basically my office. And so I can't imagine that I would have been able to just sit and recover the way that I should have had I stayed home. Because I'm also like always thinking like, what's the next thing that I can do? What's the next thing that I can do? I'm always looking for something to do. My brain is very active and I'm always looking for something. And so it's actually a really good thing. So when I filmed my road trip vegan food video, that was when we were in Tennessee. And I believe that it was 3 days out from my surgery. I was still sleeping upright at that point. I can't remember. There was a point during the road trip where I was able to finally begin to sleep lying down, because I was in a lot of pain and I couldn't, like, you know, they had done 4 cuts. It was a laparoscopic surgery. So thankfully I didn't have the big one where I would have had to recover for like 6 weeks and the road trip would have been out. But it went very well, just the normal little cuts. And, but I still was in so much pain that I couldn't like lift myself up. And so I was sleeping upright. And yeah, I was still sleeping upright in Tennessee, but I was so happy to be around the kitchen and like finally doing something, because I felt like, like I was just like, too much going, like too much nothing happening. And so when I filmed that video, yeah, I was pretty soon out from my surgery, but I was so happy to be doing something again. And then we got my son taken care of. We flew home. Basically, we flew home. I'm trying to think, I think it was Thursday night. We got in really late. So it was road trip leaving Monday. We were gone a full week until like the following Thursday. So I'm not talking Thursday, like 3 days after we left. I'm talking like the following Thursday. We got home really late at night. I remember we had a layover. We had to move through the airport really quickly. And that was hard on me still. At that point, I was having a hard time moving very quickly. Praise God, we still made it. We ended up being totally fine. And then, but yeah, we were close. We were like 7 minutes out from our flight taking off by the time we made it to the next flight, because I was so slow. But it all worked out. So we got home late Thursday night, and then my son and my daughter started school on Monday. So we got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then school started. And so, yeah, it was just kind of a crazy time. It's been a crazy time. Then Tuesday of that week, my daughter came home with something going on. She ended up with a fever. Wednesday morning, she had a fever. I spent like 3 days being her pillow, and then I got sick. And then Adam got sick. And now I think has it been about 2 weeks? We're still kind of recovering. Like, it's crazy how long this thing has lasted. I don't know if it's a version of the thing, you know, that everybody's super scared of. I don't even know. But it's just crazy. But I did take a test and it came out negative for that. So I don't know, but it's been sick. So basically I went straight from surgery recovery to sickness, and then a new recovery from being sick. Actually, I theorized that Adam and I, because Sage got over it really fast within only a few days. Elliot also has not gotten sick at all. And so that's been awesome, but also something that I've noticed. And I wonder if Adam and I are both the ones it's taking the longest for us to get over it. Because that's kind of typically how I am too. Like, every time I get sick, I'm sick for maybe 2 days, maybe 3, and then I'm done. But yeah, this time has been just really drawn out. And so like, actually, when I filmed my video, my most recent video, what was it? I can't even remember what it was. It was a good video. A lot of people liked it. Oh yeah, the wheat, corn, and rice video. When I filmed that video, I had a fever because I was like, I have to do something. I am going insane, because at this point I've had weeks of like recovery and sick. Like I was so bored, like my brain was so bored. And so I've got to do something. And that's a video that I've been wanting to make for kind of a while. So I went ahead and just filmed it. And one of the reasons I had such short segments was because I would talk about everything that I could talk about. And I stopped the camera and then I started coughing my head off. I'm still dealing with a little bit of that. So I might need to pause every now and then to have a little coughing fit, but it's not nearly as bad as it was. So I'm definitely on the road to recovery. I no longer am having fevers and I'm doing better. But like I had just had surgery, Adam was exhausted from the road trip because he was the one who did all of the driving, 100% of it, because he was the only one on the rental car, agreement to drive. So he drove over 3,500 miles and he was exhausted by the time we were done with all that. And so I think that that's just got to be part of what it was, exhaustion, and two different kinds of exhaustion. And so, yeah, but thank God we are actually recovering and everything's going well now. So that is basically kind of a life update thing. You guys are up to speed now. Sage has started kindergarten, so that's great. I have a few hours a day. It's only a half day, but I have a few hours a day that I can kind of work on some stuff again. I'm very excited about that. And so I'm really looking forward to bringing more stuff to the channel. But let's go ahead and get started talking about the specific preps that really helped me through all of this shenanigans and craziness that we have just been through. The primary thing that kept us going through this time was just having a store of food on hand. Like, it is literally just the best. It feels like it's a bit of a panacea for like every issue that could come up in life. It's like, it seems like most of it is very well served by having a nice stock of food on hand. You don't have to go to the store. So if you're in a situation where you can't go to the store, I don't know, say usually you have two vehicles, one of them breaks down, your husband has to use your car to go to work or whatever. And you don't have a vehicle, but you still need to make meals or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, all kinds of stuff could come up, or yeah, you're recovering from surgery, or you're taking a certain medication that it doesn't allow you to drive, or you're just whatever might be happening, going on, whatever. Not having to go to the store is such a huge help. Now, we did end up sending Elliot twice to the store because he didn't get sick again. He's old enough to drive now, so he goes off and he goes to the store for us a couple times. He did go for a couple times just to get us like produce because we didn't have that on hand. Honestly, that's not like an emergency. We wouldn't have to have that except for the fact we were sick and I wanted produce. And I wanted fresh things to help us get over stuff quickly and just to give our bodies, you know, those phytochemicals and antioxidants and nourishment for getting over illness, the vitamin C and all of that. And so if we didn't have him able to do that though, I would have just utilized a grocery delivery service. And so that's what I would have done. I also have family and relatives. Family and friends locally that could have helped me with that. So if you don't have a grocery delivery service, but could you possibly maybe have like a bit of a community of people who might be able to help deliver stuff? And so that's kind of the solution maybe for produce, or say you just are getting it all from your garden. You know, that's a great thing too. Of course, that is work, but basically just generally having a nice store of food on hand is wonderful. Not having to go to the store. And I don't mean like not having to go to the store and then having to get super creative with the random weirdness that you find in the back of your pantry. I mean like eating well, like eating the meals that your family is accustomed to eating, because you're not running out of, you know, whatever sauce you usually have, or your whatever bulk, like what the bulk of the meal is made of. You're not running out of that. And so it's just so wonderful to have that on hand. And again, it's not necessarily having to be about disasters. That's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about talking about this particular aspect of prepping almost more than any other, is because people don't really realize how helpful and wonderful and how much peace it gives you, and how much it feels like you have someone helping you, even though nobody's like helping you specifically, but it's like I'm being helped by having all of this stuff. Oh my gosh, it's like you get propped up by your preps and supported in ways that I think you can't imagine until you actually go through it and you realize what a wonderful gift it is to have all of this stocked up. And so the work is worth it. But yeah, I just want to say that. And it's just like reducing general suffering in your life, the day-to-day issues, the stress, being able to not have to do another task when you've already gotten so much on your plate that, you know, you can't you can't think of doing another thing. Like, it's so wonderful. So yeah, just having a stock of food. It's not only for emergencies. It's not only for that stuff that, you know, preppers get super excited about. Like where you get the sense that they're like excited. They're kind of excited at the idea of some emergency happening so that they can test their mettle and test their preps and see like, did I do a good enough job or whatever, you know, like you kind of get the sense sometimes that guys are like, women too, not only women, guys, or not only the guys, but just the prepper people in general, that they're like almost fantasizing about stuff going down so that they can like be the one who wins. I don't know, but anyway, I don't really have any of that in me. I just sort of feel like, yeah, I'm convinced it's smart to do. We are the first human beings in all of history who have outsourced our food storage to a grocery store. Like, that just did not exist even like very recently, right? And so this is the way that human beings have always survived, is by stocking up food. It's just smart. It's normal. It's only very recently that it became abnormal to do this. So yeah, I'm very passionate about talking about it. But yeah, that's also, like I said, I'm not excited about emergencies at all. That's why I always try to bless you at the end of every one of my videos and say, I hope that your life stays wonderful, because I mean it. I hope you never really need any of the advice that I give, but hopefully if you have taken the advice and done a little bit, hopefully it helps you in those times when you really need it. So yes, just generally having a store of food on hand. The second thing that has helped me the most is kind of a funny thing. It's a bit of a sore point with me. It's not really, I'm just kind of joking, but I'm getting my mom finger out because not to you guys, but because of this video, the video that I have made that has one of the highest ratios of dislikes to likes of all the videos I've ever made. I've made a lot of videos. This one has one of the highest ratios of dislikes. If you want to know which one it is. It's the video where I discuss the very thing that is another one of the things that helped me the most during this time. Putting my dry beans in jars, not canning them, not anything, just pre-portioning beans into jars and sticking them in my pantry like this. I know it's probably like, yeah, that's crazy. Even Adam was like, what's the point of that? Like, even he was like not seeing the whole picture. Even I was not seeing the whole picture of how amazing this is. I'm going to make another video and talk about this because of how incredible this has proven to be in my life. This is a habit that I will literally never stop doing in my whole life. So each one of these is equivalent to about 4 cans of beans from the store. That is about what we need for any meal for my family, to have enough for our meal and then have enough for a few leftovers for the next day for like lunches and stuff like that. And so basically 1 cup of dry beans usually cooks up to about 3 cups of cooked beans. Each store-bought can of beans is usually about 1.5 cups of beans. And so that's where I get the ratio, or that's where I get the estimation that each 2-cup portion of dry beans becomes about 4 cans of beans from the store. So not only is it a major space saver, it's just wonderful. The thing that I've discovered since I made the first video, and I need to talk about it in the second video, but I'll go ahead and share here too, is that because I make these jars, these pint jars, I just fill them up to the top with my dry beans. Because I make them with every kind of bean that I have in my storage. The other kind of awesome bonus of this is that I am rotating through all of the beans that I have in my storage, not just like only cooking chickpeas and red lentils, which is kind of what we cook the most in our house. I've also discovered I really don't like cooking cannellini beans. There's like almost nothing I really like cannellini beans in. Like, they're okay in a certain kind of soup, and that's basically it. So I'm probably not going to purchase cannellini beans again. So things like that. But just having this, especially because I spent 3 weeks unable to lift anything heavier than 10 pounds. So having this, like, so I'm not lifting any of these big buckets. All I have to do is take this out of my pantry where they're all stored in my pantry, dump the beans into a strainer, rinse it, dump the rinsed beans into the Instant Pot, add 6 cups of water, close it. I'm golden. So this is kind of the way that it works in my house. So if you have an Instant Pot or a pressure cooker that you like, there's other brands of pressure cookers besides the Instant Pot, but if you have something like that, yeah, this is like awesome. It takes virtually no time whatsoever. I can just like know that I need, you know, a certain kind of bean for dinner that night and just toss it in the afternoon. If I worked, I would probably Like if I worked outside the home, I would probably just toss it in the morning, and then you can set a timer so that they can be relatively freshly cooked and piping hot like when you get home from work, and then you can toss them into your soup or whatever it is you're planning on making that night. There's also plenty of recipes where you can cook the beans directly in the recipe. So yeah, I just love it. So this is basically replaced all canned beans for me. I have another video on the channel where I talk about like the one thing that changes everything, and it's just the switch that we made from canned beans to dry beans. And I know it's not for everybody. I'm not trying to shit on anybody. You do your own thing. It's just so ridiculously convenient that I personally can't see going back, but also it's just been such a helpful thing for me. Not only with not having to lift the buckets, but knowing this is pre-measured, so I don't even have to get like a measuring cup out and measure. I've reduced, I know that I did steps to fill, but because I fill so many at once, it feels like I've reduced my steps and it just has been very helpful. So this one random little thing that seems dumb on the surface, I think, and pointless has been such a major help to me, not only these last few weeks, but honestly, again, it's been kind of, like I said, not necessarily a lifesaver, but it's been a day saver, because I couldn't lift these buckets for a while, but I was still able to cook food for my family. Bonus for the grains, I also will have these jars of grains, just random like jars I'm reusing that will fit 3 cups of whatever grain, which tends to be about the proportion that we end up using in our family. 3 cups of rice, 3 cups of quinoa, 3 cups of brown rice, 3 cups of whatever. And so that goes in the Instant Pot, or it gets rinsed, it goes in the Instant Pot, and then whatever amount of water and then whatever amount of time for each grain. These are all things that you can find out on the internet. Like if you Google how much to cook, how long to cook the various things in the Instant Pot, you will come up with the answers. So yeah, having pre-portioned grains and beans has been a massive help for me in my life over these past few weeks. And so now that we talked about that, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some of like the day-to-day functional stuff and how I manage to keep the household running even when I am definitely not even close to 100%. How do I still like get my dishes done and get my laundry done and keep the household functioning is what we're going to talk about. And that's the key right there. All right, survival cleaning. So I have talked a little bit about this on the channel at times before, I believe, but it really came to a head these last few weeks. And so when I'm talking about survival cleaning, I'm talking about function, like I said. So we're not talking about perfection of the home, making it like Pinterest or magazine worthy. We are talking about function. What are identifying and zeroing in on the tasks that, if they are not done, really important things in the household don't get taken care of or can't happen. So I prioritize the 2 probably main things that I'm prioritizing during this time, as far as like what little energy I have recovering from surgery, being sick, the few, like those small things. The number 1 priority is always dishes for me. And then kind of secondary to that is laundry. And so those are my main priorities, because we're not talking about things like mopping a floor. As gross as it may sound, I haven't mopped my floors in a few weeks. So I have little spots on my floor everywhere. So this is a thing that embarrasses me if people come over, but it's not something that stops my children from going to school in clean clothes and from having food in their lunches. Or like my husband, same thing. It's not something that stops him from going to work in clean clothes or stops him from having a lunch at work. Do you know what I'm saying? Or like having meals every day, which is super important. Clean underwear, clean socks. Like these are very important things in kind of day-to-day living. And so that's why I really mainly prioritize the dishes and the laundry. Even if you end up with like that little ring in the toilet, I mean, that is not going to kill you, but obviously it's very easy to just sort of brush that out. We're gonna actually talk a little bit about bathroom stuff like at the end. And so that's only if you really have the energy. But the other thing with mopping is I can't lift my mop bucket, or I couldn't lift my mop bucket for a very long time because I couldn't lift anything heavier than 10 pounds. So that was like kind of another aspect to it. One of the very fortunate things that I do have though is like a little automatic vacuum. I have a little Shark automatic like robot vacuum, and so I've been able to send that around my house to at least vacuum and keep stuff from like crunching under my feet. If I didn't have that, I would definitely prioritize vacuuming like in the kitchen and in the rooms. I would probably do like 1 room a day. But let's go ahead and do talk about the dishes specifically. So I prioritize my dishes, like I said, almost more than anything else, because we have to have food in our house. It's like one of the number 1 things that we have to have. And so in even the dishes, the hierarchy of dishes is number one is the pots and the pans and like the instant pot inserts. The things that allow me to cook the food must be clean, even over necessarily like the dishes, like the regular dishes, like the plate or the fork or whatever. That's the kind of thing, honestly, like if things have been crazy and I haven't had anything, although thank God we never got to this point this last time, but it has happened in the past where I'm just like, look, just wash your own plate before we start the meal, you know, and people have had to kind of do that, like if stuff has really gotten behind, which is easy to do if you don't have systems in place. But now that I have a lot of systems in place, that doesn't really ever happen anymore. So prioritizing washing pots and pans and the cooking stuff. So what I do with that, for instance, is if I have a pot or a pan in the kitchen and like when I'm really tired, every time I go into the kitchen, because I do go into the kitchen relatively often, you know, to get water or, you know, to grab a snack from the fridge or whatever, I have a rule that every single time I walk into the kitchen, I will wash one hand wash dish. So that's my pots, my pans, the Instant Pot inserts or whatever. And so the other thing that I do is I always have something in the sink soaking so that when I walk into the kitchen, I'm able to just very easily clean it out, get it set. I usually, actually, if I don't even have the energy to dry it, I can at least set it on the stove and it can like air dry. And so we're surgery recovery. Okay. I was exhausted. So we're getting really real here. And so just one thing, hand wash one thing. And then once that goes onto the stove, if there's another thing, like another pot that has something dry in it or whatever, go ahead and get that into the sink and get that soaking. And so I know like soaking has a bad rap because a lot of times people will use soaking as the excuse to not get something done. But honestly, soaking is sometimes necessary. Usually though, for no longer than like a half an hour is almost always enough. If like a half hour to 40 minutes is not enough to soak through the stuff in the pan, then get yourself a pan scraper and start getting through that stuff. You know, like I can't remember like anything that has ever not been soaked out within like 20 or 30 minutes of just putting water in there. Like it's fine. The other thing is if I have a little bit more energy and I have some of the hand wash dishes, things that can't go into the dishwasher off to the side, I will toss those into the pot of water in my sink and I'll be able to do those. And when I do those, I just sort of count that as one because it's very fast to wash those things again if they've been soaking. And so that ends up taking care of that usually by like very quickly. All of my hand wash dishes will be finished and I don't really feel like I put forth any real effort because I didn't have to put forth any sustained effort. And I think that's the main thing, is not having to put forth sustained effort, and you do just like tiny bits here and there, and it's amazing how much you can accomplish. And so the other rule that I have is I don't hand wash dishes that can go into the dishwasher, with just like a couple of exceptions always. The number one exception being my chef knife. I typically hand wash that just because I use it all the time. Like every meal I need to be chopping my vegetables, I need to be chopping whatever. And so that always has to be clean. And so oftentimes I can't wait for it to get clean out of the dishwasher. I need it like now. So I don't really wash my chef knife in the dishwasher. I wash that by hand. But yeah, pretty much anything that can go in the dishwasher goes in the dishwasher. It gets run once a day. It is my son's job to empty it, but there's been a few times I have emptied it myself so that I could get more dishes in, so that I could run it again, so that we could just keep caught up on things. Cause it's just been so tiring. And so I know for a fact that it takes me less than 10 minutes to empty my dishwasher. So that's the other thing, is kind of knowing how long certain tasks take. If I have the energy, I can go ahead and take care of that. And so that's basically how I kind of run the dishes. And again, sort of the importance, and again, we're focusing on the function. So in the hierarchy of the function of the dishes, the most important ones have to be, for me, the pots and the pans. So I focus on that first. If the other stuff kind of piles up, it's not as big of a deal. It's easier to like wash a little plate sometimes than it is to wash a pan that has had dried up gunk in it, right? So you can see kind of like, I'm trying to take the path of least resistance in the dishes anyway. And just doing that helped me to keep my kitchen actually pretty clean even through this whole time, just little bits at a time, not Herculean efforts at all, just sort of maintaining it. And that really helped me out. And so specifically the laundry, because again, people need clean clothes. My kids going to school need clean clothes, especially my daughter. Oh my gosh. So she gets a spare outfit at school in case she gets wet, because it's kind of like a really awesome school. They allow the kids to play. And so it rained one time. And so they had like muddy puddles. And my daughter watches Peppa and she loves jumping in muddy puddles. Of course, kids just love jumping in muddy puddles anyway. But I think not last week, but like the week before, like I was super sick. She came home every single day in her spare outfit. So I had to do like extra laundry because we don't have a lot of clothes. Like I don't plan to have tons of clothes because I find it, you know, perfectly functional to have fewer clothes for the most part, but I had to do laundry so that I could keep up on her clothes. She used, instead of using only 5 outfits that week, she used 9 outfits. 4 of the 5 days she came home in her spare clothes and I had to wash clothes extra just to make sure that I was keeping up with all of that and stuff like that. So, you know, it's just crazy. Now, laundry is a great thing too, because honestly, again, if you're talking about function and function alone, you don't necessarily technically have to put it away, do you? You can do it. It can sit in the dryer when it's dry. Look, we're talking function. I'm not talking about the way that I live my life all of the time. It's good to be responsible and take care of your tasks, but like, again, going through like a really hard time, like these are the places where you can kind of create a little bit of buffer for yourself. Just like leave it in the dryer and like pull stuff out as needed, or put it on a chair, put it on a table. You don't necessarily have to put it away. You're not necessarily impeding the function of dressing if your laundry happens to be in a pile rather than in the closet. Now, of course, it's handier if it's in your closet. It's a lot easier if things are put away. So I do aim to put stuff away still, but even still, depending on how difficult your time is, difficult things are right now for you, maybe putting the laundry away is not in the cards right now. So the other thing is super simplifying laundry put away, like not folding anything that doesn't really need to be folded and kind of tossing stuff into drawers and things like that. Like I don't fold Sage's shorts or her pants or any, like they just kind of get tossed into a drawer and stuff like that. Like it's like you don't need to. None of that stuff needs to get folded. And so like that helps out too. But honestly, what I will do, like even just yesterday, I had a pile of laundry. It was two loads of laundry, a huge pile of laundry on my bed. I had to wash an extra load of laundry. I'm trying to remember why. Yeah, anyway, I had to wash a load like sooner than I thought I needed to. So I had 2 big loads of laundry on my bed. And so basically what I did yesterday, because again, we're not talking about a long sustained effort. I know for a fact that 2 loads of laundry usually takes me anywhere between 30 to 40 minutes to put away, depending on how complicated it is. And so if I don't have the sustained effort to stand there for 40 minutes to put laundry away, I will also kind of do almost a similar thing like I do with the dishes, where like with the dishes, every time I go into the kitchen, I do 1 hand wash dish. With the laundry, it's every time I pass in my bedroom, usually to go to the bathroom. Every time I go into my bedroom, I will put away at least 5 pieces of clothing. And so sometimes I'm like, you know what, I'm fine. It doesn't take long at all. I'll do 10 pieces of clothing. And so I'll hang up 10 things, or I'll fold 10 different things or whatever. And so I tend to aim for the biggest stuff first. And then that also helps to dramatically reduce the visual size of the pile, which makes it feel like you've done more. And then also ultimately what ends up happening is you're left with kind of the little stuff like matching socks and just like underwear and stuff like that, which is a lot easier to deal with. And so right now, like yesterday, just through basically doing that all day long, walking into my room, going to the bathroom, coming out, putting away 5, 6, 10 things at a time, and then going on my merry way and taking care of other things, I got virtually the entire 2 loads of laundry put away. I have a very small pile currently on my bed, which I'm planning to put away. I know it's going to take me maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10, like probably not even 10 to put that away. I'm going to do that once I get dinner into the Instant Pot. Tonight we're making a very easy sambar. We're doing it's like a spicy lentil vegetable soup. It's an Indian soup. And so I'm doing that tonight for dinner. It's going to be super simple. Throw that into the Instant Pot. And once that's in the Instant Pot, I'm going to run off and take less than 10 minutes and put my laundry away. So I'm going to finish. And like stuff in my kitchen is done. And a lot of times it's like, I think sometimes too, like, even when you're not dealing with things like sickness or recovery from surgery, especially if you are neurodivergent in any way, the task itself can seem so overwhelming that you don't want to start. But you can trick yourself into getting things done by telling yourself, oh, I'm only going to do 1. And then that's not as threatening. And so then you feel like, okay, I can do this. And then that's easier to do. And so try to maybe, if you have trouble even in your daily life with like doing effort on larger tasks to try to just trick yourself and just say like, okay, every time I walk into the room, I'll just do this, or every time I walk in the kitchen, I'll do one thing, or every time I walk into that spot, I'll do, you know, like whatever the thing is. Give yourself a teeny tiny task that feels almost silly. Like, yeah, like I'm silly if I can't get this done, right? And then you'll end up finding that you get so much done. And so those are my tips for the laundry and the dishes specifically, is really basically to do small pieces at a time. And that's what ends up being super helpful. Also just sort of general picking up in the house. That's another thing that can kind of impede the function of the house, honestly, if you have crap on the floor everywhere. And so that's one of those things, or your own stuff. You create more work for yourself in the future if you don't take care of things in the moment. And so I try as hard as I can to follow the one touch rule. If you've never heard that, that is basically the rule that states that you try to touch everything only once. And so rather than taking your jacket and throwing it on the back of your chair and then throwing it on the back of the couch or whatever, just go hang it up right away. Like don't touch it more than one time, if that makes sense. And so that really helps with some of the clutter around the house from building up. If you can follow the one touch rule, if you can get your kids in line with the one touch rule, make it almost like a game. Try to touch everything only once, and it can seem like a game, and then they might fall in line and help out with that as well. The other thing I mentioned was bathrooms. And so I wanted to talk about briefly the, oh my goodness, what is it? The mum method, organized mum method. It's a British lady who put it together. It's very good. I will link the free printables below. It has a cleaning schedule on it. But one of my favorite things about the organized mum method is for keeping bathrooms clean. She says to do just one task in every bathroom every day, and you sort of cycle through the tasks. And so, you know, cleaning the toilet, cleaning the mirrors, like little tasks. If you just do like one little task in a bathroom every day, it helps to keep it clean. So it's kind of the same concept as the laundry and the dishes and all of that. Also, if you're constantly maintaining it, then you never have like a really grody bathroom. And so that's just something to think about. It's another thing, like if you're tired or whatever, you can be exhausted, but you know, you can use the brush in the toilet, or you can squirt a little bit of toilet bowl cleaner in there maybe and let it sit for a while, then just use the brush and then flush, and then that's your bathroom work for the day. Or you know what I mean? Or just wipe down your sink or wipe your mirrors, and that's your whole day of work in the bathroom. But if you keep doing that, you end up maintaining those spaces much better. And so that's a great thing. But I will link those printables down below. I found them very helpful for myself. And yeah, so I think that is basically everything that I have to tell you. And I hope that you found that video helpful. I hope that, that any of it is helpful, that it helps reduce some of your suffering, if there's any. I know that probably sounds dramatic, but that's my heart. It's my hope, my prayer all the time, to reduce suffering of those around me and to just try to help and be a light and be helpful. And so, yeah, I just hope that if you're going through a hard time, whatever it is, whatever it may be, that these things kind of help keep you on track. And then you don't have the stress of everything falling apart around you and feeling like you can't get out of it. So really, but again, if you can't prioritize any of that, just prioritize your dishes. And that's the main thing. At least that's the thing that I have found. So anyway, I guess that will be all, and I will leave you. Just let me know your comments down below. Maybe you have some tips for getting through some difficult times that you would like to share. And so I would love to hear those, or thoughts on anything that I have said. And yeah, as always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.